What emotion bubbles to the surface when you consider that there are people who are actively seeking to solicit your children or the children of your closest friends and family? How will you choose to honor that raw emotion and bring in a measure of beneficial movement because of it? What action will you commit to today? Where inside your personal life do you have an unhealthy connection to just taking what you want to fulfill your personal desires? And where in your business and personal life do you disregard human dignity, even if in the slightest way? And what will your exact course of action now be as soon as you become aware or have a rather strange feeling that sexual exploitation and human trafficking might be at play? In this week's episode, we'll discuss protecting the young, getting old cowboy. How can Jessica smile so deeply even though she's been through so much? Breaking cycles of victimization and redeeming your suffering and repurposing your pain. Now, if you want to stop the self sabotage, raise your standards, and participate with unshakable confidence, you'll want to take the Maximize Your Life quiz found at www.jameshepner.com/quiz right now. By taking this little quiz, you will discover exactly where you're making your life unnecessarily difficult and exactly where your behaviors are cutting you from the outcomes and goals you crave most. Your quiz results will pinpoint with precise accuracy the exact areas to focus on. This will immediately activate your ability to use your time and resources effectively and instantly set you on your path to create higher level gains with, you know what we want, less strain. Why not get down to the base and discover the truth about what's controlling your life right now? I challenge you. Take a few minutes. You owe it to yourself. You are worth it, and your experience of life depends on it. Give yourself the gift by honoring yourself and taking 5 minutes to invest in yourself. Take the Maximize Your Life quiz now at www.jameshepner.com/quiz and finally set yourself on the path that will lead you directly to what you want and need most now. Welcome to Weekly Wins and Losses. My name is James Hepner, former real estate entrepreneur turned self-development hacker, coach, and fulfillment strategist. Each week, we bring you a thought to wrestle with that'll help you live fully alive and gain more life. Real life is made up of both wins and losses. Both were designed for your good. That's basic reality. Without facing and learning how to embrace your losses for greater gain, you miss out. You leave 50% of your life experience on the table. So with that, let's begin the show. Welcome, friends. Today I have on the show someone who I have been waiting to have on for quite some time. A little while ago, I had someone that this lady has co-authored a book with. His name is Alan on the show. And so this is part two to Alan's little show. And of course, Jessica. Jessica, welcome here.
Thank you for having me.
Not a problem. Jessica Midkiff. Is it Cliff or Midkiff? Midkiff?
Yes.
Okay. Is the program development specialist at Saving Innocence. Jessica, yeah, there you go. Woot woot. I like that. If you could just for a moment, what's your life been about?
Ooh, that's so loaded. My life has been about basically giving back to others and specifically giving back to others that are just like me. And I know
Hmm.
it sounds kind of selfish, but at Saving Innocence, we work with children. We just recently started working with adults. We've been just kind of taking that on. I work for an anti-human trafficking agency, and so I am a survivor of commercial sexual exploitation um, and lots of abuse from early on. That kind of pushed me into that life, and I was able to escape. Um, can I say that by the grace of God? Can I say that?
Yeah. Yeah, you say whatever you feel like saying. I love it. It's good.
But
Beautiful.
yeah, by the grace of God, I was able to escape and be able to begin a life um, of some type of peace for once. And it's been a crazy journey, but I've been able to do that. And I kind of fell into the work that I was doing. I was told by my grandmother maybe a year or two before she had passed away, I'd helped her with her hospice care. She told me, she was like, you know what, no matter what you've gone through, she was like, you just really have a patient spirit. Like, you're very patient, you're very kind, you're not judgmental. She's like, have you ever thought about going into nursing? And I had never thought about doing anything. And I ended up helping her, and unfortunately, she passed away. And so I picked up and went to nursing school and started doing the nursing stuff. And in the midst of all of it, after doing the schooling and everything, was very difficult to get the job I really wanted. I actually ended up volunteering in the meantime at a program that housed and worked with adult commercial sexual exploitation survivors. And eventually I was hired on. So I kind of went to school for nursing. It was kind of for not. And ended up working with survivors, which
Mm,
proved to be difficult but very rewarding. And a wonderful lady, her name is Michelle
mm,
Guyman from LA County Probation. She was looking for someone to come speak to the kids in juvenile hall about, human trafficking. And there were a lot of kids in that group that had been trafficked.
mm.
And I went in and talked to them and ended up getting a job under a contract through LA County Probation. So I worked with them for some years. And I just kind of moved around a little bit and had always been really cool with the founder of Saving Innocence from almost the inception of, and eventually ended up landing in working here. And so I've done direct services, and now I work with a lot of the different programs to help the agency and help our kids and help the employees just to have like a smoother time throughout all of this. And
Mhm.
I was giving back one by one, and now I feel like I'm giving back on more of a macro level. And so I
Mhm.
guess this kind of ended up being my calling. And when it doesn't end up being my calling anymore, and I've done all
Oh.
I can do, or my mission, then I'll
Mm.
probably go back into nursing.
Mm.
I really just like helping people.
Wow. Yeah. And then there at the end, you have a little laugh. Listeners, just take this in. Sexual exploitation, survivor of. I'm going to take this straight out of your book. And I think these are probably Alan's words. And I resonated so deeply with this. And so, listeners, here we go. I'm just going to read this directly. And I mean this. This is what I feel towards you right now. There are few who are as strong and uniquely resilient as you. Enduring over 10 years of oppressive abuse and trauma and exploitation. Your personal knowledge in accomplishing and escaping it is beyond significant and second to none. So, listeners and Jessica, I want and need to be careful and respectful and move through this heartfully to ensure that your words really sink in with us because they're very important. So, thank you. Mhm,
Thank you. Thank you so
mhm,
much.
mhm.
Yeah, that was Alan. He has a way with words.
Right.
Thank you
I
for having
know. Yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah. No, it's just absolutely fantastic. What part of let's just go back to, and I'm not going to read the book because people can buy the book, which by the way, listeners, you got to pick this thing up. You got to pick this thing up. If you're a man, if you're a woman, whatever you identify, you got to pick this thing up because there are truths in here and there are moments that you're going to gulp and then you're going to want to skip over, but you're going to need to read it because it's not for the faint at heart. And this is life-changing stuff. So you're going to really want to tap in. But if you were to look back and just make easy, and again, the story isn't easy. So I'm not looking to like sugarcoat anything and just blast past certain things. But if you were to look, you know, seeing where you are today and looking back over your life, what do you say? How did this all begin? And I know the story, it goes about, you were abused from your stepfather, I think it was from young on, 3 or 5 years old. And then by 11, you were a housekeeper for people and they would take advantage of you. And it just grew and grew and grew. And your parents, of course, they had a divorce and these things. But how would you, and not to solve anything, but how do you think this all, your life conditioned you towards, and I wouldn't say conditioning you towards a decision you make. You didn't make a decision. This is something you just were in a vortex kind of. It just kind of, it happened, right? Go ahead.
It I did get sucked into a vortex. I really didn't have peace
Mm,
as a child. So the people that were supposed to protect me were unable to for certain reasons or just didn't want to.
mm,
And I say some were unable to, like, for example, my grandmother tried her best, but my grandmother fell ill
mm,
when I was very young. And I
mm,
mean, this woman would fight for me every chance she got.
mm,
I was her first grandchild, her only grandchild for years. And she just kind of understood a lot, and unfortunately, it was just people, they just didn't care for me. So the things that you would do for your children, where it's like, no, don't do this. Hey, that's not safe. No, I love you. That's not appropriate. Like that guiding, right?
mm,
That huge guiding piece, I didn't have too much of. And so for me, um, it just turned out to be where my victimization just started very, very early. And
mm,
of course, folks can read it in the book, but my victimization started early. And one of the things we know is once a person has been victimized, it's very hard to get out of that cycle.
mm,
And especially if people are pushing you into victimization, it's extremely difficult. And so even if I knew that things weren't right, they
mhm,
were common for me.
mm,
And for a child, that's a very hard place to be in, where it's like, okay, I'm told by some people that it's not right, but this is something that is what's expected of me. And so,
mm,
I mean, I remember being placed in front of men as a young girl and, being told that I was the test to see if they wanted me, then it was known that they weren't good. And if they didn't want me, then they were good. And so, but a child should never be put in that place to be a test. I should
wow.
never be put in danger or paraded in front of men
Mhm,
um, to see whether they're going to mess with me or not. So a lot of it was just really like lack of guidance, a lot of
mm,
abuse,
mm,
the cleaning houses. And so I was introduced earlier on, but I fully got into being commercially sexually exploited by 11. But I was introduced earlier on by 10, where it was like the first few steps. And then before then, it was just all kinds of abuse from the mental, emotional, spiritual, down to the sexual, physical, just everything. And the earliest I can remember being abused was about 3 years old. And people are like, oh, I can't remember that far back. But the thing is, when you experience trauma,
mhm,
there's some type of memory, whether it's mental within your body or whatever it is, you remember.
mm,
And your body kind of
mm,
reacts and goes with it.
mm,
And so my life was just very hard, and I didn't feel exactly loved. And the only time I really got a little distance and a little time to breathe was at my grandparents' house for the most
mm,
part. Um, and so it was just without direction and love and protection, I fell into this. Um, and, I kind of figured like this is a part of like what I was put on this earth to do. And
mm,
so for years and years until I was an adult, I stayed um, being commercially sexually exploited because there was no one to fight for me.
mm,
And the main person that would have fought for me was deathly ill and couldn't do anything, even down to where she couldn't even speak anymore. And so that one person out of many was the only one that was willing to fight for me and was unable to. And that's how I kind of ended up just falling in, was the abuse and the being pushed. And a
mm.
very big part of it too is like it's very common now where there's a lot of biracial people and children nowadays. But when I was growing up, without giving up my age, uh, um, I was kind of like the unicorn in the hood, kind of. There were not too many mixed kids. Um,
Mm,
from around the way. And I mean, all of us have always been a little bit, a little
mhm,
mixed somehow, some way. But my father's from Landstuhl, Germany. Landstuhl, I don't really know how to say it. Landstuhl, Germany. My mother is mixed. We have Greek and Native American. And I found out recently we had Portuguese as well on my mother's side. So very mixed. I didn't really look like all the kids in the neighborhood. I didn't look like the kids I went to school with. I grew up in a Black household,
mm,
lived in a Black neighborhood, and was not accepted by my Black peers. or Hispanic peers or anyone else. I just did not belong. And so there was that element of not belonging either that
Mm-hmm.
kind of made
Mm-hmm.
me open or fair game to predators. So me going and sitting by myself or, just sticking out like a sore thumb
Mm-hmm.
what played a very, very big part too
Mm-hmm.
in my exploitation.
I would imagine that when they would parade you, so going back to what you just finished saying, when they'd parade you in front of, a company comes over and then come into the room, let's have a look to see, do you want her or not? Like that horrific experience. I would imagine that the human spirit, doesn't matter how old, how young, feels that that's not normal. Like it doesn't feel normal.
It didn't.
So
Um,
how did you reconcile that? Like, so before you got sucked into this vortex, and like you said, before it was like this victimization thing was normal because it was so often, it becomes your experience. But before it became your experience, how did you reconcile that? And what came up for you? If you're open to sharing, if not, don't worry about it.
so I'm still working it out today as a
Mm,
full-on adult. And the thing is just because all those experiences, they come back and sometimes they come in flashes, they come back in nightmares, they come back in dreams, they come back in so many different ways. I'll carry it in my body one day and not
mm,
understand, like, why do I feel so down today? Like, why do I feel
mm,
so heavy today? And
mm,
I know it's like people are like, okay, well, I've heard people say that before, but to physically actually feel weighted down and not understanding why, and then it comes up and you're like, oh, that's what that
mm,
is.
mm,
I do a lot of therapy.
mm,
And so that's how I'm able to kind of bridge and
mm,
try to, I'm actively working on my healing, which I'm going to be healing for the rest of my life,
mm,
because
mm,
the complex trauma that I've experienced, it just seeps out and comes out in many different ways. I get triggered in different ways. I think, okay, I've worked this out. I'm good with this. And then
mm,
something happens or something is said or I smell something and
mm,
it reminds me of that. And
mm.
even then, when I was paraded around, I didn't know that that was what was happening. I just thought, like, my mom was like, my kid is so cute, or
Oh,
my aunts and
wow.
uncles or whoever,
Wow.
well, not my uncles, but, cousins, family, friends, like, she's so cute. Like, like most families would. I
Mhm,
have a daughter, an adult daughter in the military. And
mhm.
like around company, I'd be like, come out, babes. Because I want everyone to see the
Because you're
brilliance
so proud of her. You're
I
so proud, right?
made, you know?
Yeah. Hmm.
And I'm like, do you want to do that trick? Because she used to do like these weird arm tricks and all kinds of stuff. And it was just like this full on joy. And it wasn't the same with my family and family friends.
Mm, mm,
It was a whole different vibe. It would just be like, come out, say hello, speak to Mr. Such and such, or, it was a certain way about certain things. And I would see the men check me out, or I would go to like my mom's job when I was younger. And at that point, she wasn't parading me, but there were a lot of men at the job. And, they would like these grown men would come and sit next to me and like interview me. Oh, what you doing here? And oh yeah,
mm,
you're so pretty. And oh, look at all that long hair. My hair is shorter now, and
mhm,
because I'm older. But I had all this beautiful long hair that went
mm,
down to my legs, and the I looked a certain type of way, and they were intrigued.
mhm,
And it was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have a child that looks just like you, or so I was not actually protected,
mm, mm,
and
mm,
so my mom would kind of shoo them away or whatever, but it was it just
mm,
it
mhm,
didn't translate into full on protection. And while she's at work,
mhm,
she can't pay attention 24/7 either.
mm, mm,
And
mhm,
so I was always an object. I was always objectified. I was always a thing to test or a thing to look at, a thing to touch, a thing to use.
mm,
And so have I fully reconciled? I haven't. Um,
mhm.
but I think I've done enough work where I can talk about it without breaking down in tears every 2 seconds. That makes
Well, it makes it totally. And clearly you've done a lot of work because if you, yeah, there's that woo, there's a lot. You've done a lot of work because if you can, if you can, with your daughter, bring her out into the room and change the narrative or change that narration, sorry, that's a lot of work. Like, even I'm sure when you say cute, I'm sure you have to work through those things. We don't need to go down that rabbit hole, but like you said, the smells, any little thing can just put you into a situation and you fight, flight, you freeze, or something happens, and there you go, experiencing it all over again. Is it okay if I read a section of this book? Like, there's just one little paragraph. Can I read this?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So, listeners, like I said earlier, this is not for the faint at heart. This content will not be easy to digest, and it won't be easy to listen to, and it won't be easy to forget. So here you go. These are your words, Jessica. When I was 17 years old, I had two long ponytails. One night, I was followed by some men on Figueroa Street, a common track in Los Angeles. They said I was cute and that I looked like Pocahontas. They had a gun, and I was afraid. They told me not to scream or they would beat the hell out of me and then kill me. There were- So the question is, how do we strengthen both our mind and body effectively? Maybe I should add, why is strengthening our mind and body even something that we might want to seriously consider implementing on a daily basis? It's all about maximizing your opportunities, maximizing your ability to experience a rich life instead of a mediocre life, maximizing your ability to bring to yourself and others around you what you were set on this earth to deliver and enjoy. What's not to love about stretching yourself and experiencing the truth about the incredible capacity that you actually have? Listen, I really value you, and I want to help you maximize your life by sharing a few of the specific strategies that have made all the difference in my life. I want you to feel mentally and physically strong so you'll be well prepared when you are most needed, so that your mind and body will be entrained to know exactly what to do when others are running for the exit signs, and so that you'll activate your ability to easily identify the opportunity no matter how challenging the situation. So, I've carefully put together a well-curated resource that will make it super easy for you. Simply go to www.jameshepner.com/self-help hacker, where you will be able to see some of my favorite books and specific biohacking modalities, supplements, and biohacking experiences that will allow you to feed your mind and body the specific and exact ingredients that will give you the mental and physical edge. Now, I should note, you'll see listed a grouping of biohacking experiences like whole body cryotherapy, bone density, etc., that you can experience at our biohacking lab located on the west coast of Canada in White Rock, BC. If you live nearby, feel free to book your session as you wish. Also, you'll want to take note of the specific discount code section that allows you to purchase products from my favorite vendors anywhere from 10 to 25% off by simply using the discount code JAMES. I hope you enjoy. To your life force, to your strength, here we go. When I was 17 years old, I had two long ponytails. One night, I was followed by some men on Figueroa Street, a common track in Los Angeles. They said I was cute and that I looked like Pocahontas. They had a gun, and I was afraid. They told me not to scream or they would beat the hell out of me and then kill me. There were approximately 30 men there that night, and I was raped all night long. That's the night I got branded on my neck. After I was branded, you can't imagine what the next few years were like. I was hogtied, put in trunks of cars, pistol whipped, jumped and rolled out of cars. I was beaten and raped repeatedly. I was called bitch every single day over and over, so much so that I could forget. So I would forget what my real name was. It became normal. Typically, I had over 10 sexual encounters every day. It was one thing after another, and that's when the trauma fully set in for me. I felt as if at any moment, anybody could have killed me. I began to prepare for my death. That is intense. You know, what's interesting, when I first touched base with Alan, and Alan revealed some facts, which, by the way, you're not a fact person because In the book, you shared how one of your friends was burnt. Those burn victims, as people stuffed in garbage cans, are probably not even remembered. They're not part of the facts. They're not part of the stats because they're gone. It's convenient for us to choose certain numbers, but if we can confirm, then we have a number and we go with that. I remember when I talked with Ellen gave me some facts, and I forget the exact facts because that's not important right now. All we know, the facts are this simply, and I'm not going to spit facts other than exploitation is a number one, if I'm not mistaken. Jessica, am I correct? The number one problem in the United States. Crime in the States, exploitation. I believe that's what he said, and he had numbers to go along with it. And I asked Alan, why is it that we don't hear about this on the news? Why is it? I said, surely if we don't know what the problem is, we can't address it. And surely we'd want to know what the problem is, because if we knew what the problem is, then we can make better. And Alan just listened, and he said, yeah, but here's the thing. It's too much for people. It's too much. And I think about too much, and I think to myself, and right now, and Alan challenged me, and I know you're going to share, but he challenged me and he said, right now, there are people looking to see if they can't enter the homes of people, take their children, your children. He goes, what does it feel like? What does it feel like? He said he was at a talk one day and somebody said, men, will you fight for me? And he said, how could you not fight for something? A man, a human being. How do we not all like to fight for something bigger than ourselves? And if there's someone who's going through such atrocity, someone, and I'm an amateur on the Bible, but let's be it like this. Let's say it in this way, that to oppress another person is a non-beneficial thing to do. You're not going to feel great about yourself. And there's people that are being trafficked and are choosing to be the oppressor. And so when I say all of this, when you think about your work, what's your focus? Is it on the oppressor or on the oppressed? And I imagine it's a bit of both. But if you think about getting to the core of it, is it helping people escape? And I know that's the undertow is we got to fix the problem, the core problem. But you've been about this work for a long time and you're seeing what's working and what's not working. And if you be most honest, what do you feel yourself being pulled to? Even if you're saving innocence, the company, the group that you're working with, and they may have a certain directive, but you've been in that space, you've been directly involved. If you would let yourself go, what would you just do? If you would advocate for that space or just take action directly for, and saving innocence, you may be doing exactly what you feel drawn to, which is great. And there's that wonderful smile. I think all of us listeners, if you're listening to this, I want you to go to YouTube. There's that smile that comes every now and again. And it's just precious. And I can't wait to ask you where that comes from, but go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you. You know what? It's so funny because my why always changes in the work. Mm-hmm. It changes, I think, almost every day, sometimes every other minute. My biggest thing is whoever needs me the most, that's where I am. Mm-hmm. And I do understand, which I think folks are truly starting to understand, because if you look at how a lot of rehabilitative services are set up, they have a certain number of programs for people with different things. Mm. With human trafficking, survivors of abuse, survivors of sexual trauma, sexual assault, all domestic violence, all these things, because it's all under the same umbrella. They're their own things, but under the same umbrella. Child abuse, incest, spiritual abuse, religious abuse, all these things fall under this category one way or another. And I say that to say our kids that we get, even though they've gone through a lot of the similar things, they're all specifically different. And so I take it case by case when I work with a person. I want to do the retrievals. If a person is ready to go and they're like, I've hit rock bottom, I don't see another way, I know that I'm going to die probably or something's going to happen, I'm going to go get that kid. Mm-hmm. I'm going. Mm-hmm. And Alan argues and fights with me with this too, because he's like, that's not safe. And I'm like, we got to do what we got to do, And so Alan, I think sometimes calls me like I get all cowboy.
Mm,
Um,
okay.
and
Mm-hmm.
so, and part of that is my own particular trauma, but part of it too is just like, this is someone's baby. This is someone's
Mm,
kid. This kid needs help. And eventually one day they're going to be an adult and we want them to live the best quality of life they possibly can. So what can I do in this moment?
mm-hmm.
And so I don't know exactly what I would do in this movement. It's just kind of like I'm letting God move through me. I went through
Mm,
direct services, development, HR, client resources, all in Saving Innocence. I worked in other capacities in different places. I worked for a law firm that catered specifically to CSEC. I've worked in so many different places. And my biggest thing is, how can you guys utilize me? How can I be of service
mm.
in the best way possible to help? And
Wow.
I'm not a saint or,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, how
Mm-hmm.
can I help? Because
Mm-hmm.
there are so many times coming up, there were so many ways someone could have helped me and they didn't. So if I could be that chameleon or whatever you want to call it, then I'll be that in that particular moment. And it's not just the kids, it's the adults too that are being trafficked. And it's also the people that do the work. I try my hardest to take care of the people, my colleagues, because these are the people that have the heart that stand on the front lines to do what they do. And not, without even ever experiencing this firsthand,
Mm-hmm.
they
Mm-hmm.
still go in not knowing what they're going to experience or deal with.
Mm.
And so the whole thing is just to take care of, right? And so for me, it's just God moving through me however he chooses to
Wow.
move through me.
Mm.
And I may not hear him or listen all the time, but eventually I catch on. And
Mm.
so but I would love definitely to, after the super traumatic parts, is to help them to have those building blocks, right, in their life, to have a regular life.
Mm.
There's
Mm-hmm.
such thing as a regular life,
Mm-hmm.
and not be embarrassed and to live in whatever truth it is, or like just to have a good life. If you want children, okay, let's figure out your parenting style. Let's figure out, because
Mm.
everything you do is not wrong. It's not dirty. It's not messed up. You're not going to mess your kid up. If
Mm-hmm.
that was, we're all messed up. The
Mm-hmm.
best parents mess kids up sometimes, right? So,
Yeah, I think
uh,
one of the biggest problems we have in today's culture is we tend to strive towards a purity culture, and no matter how you scrub yourself and how clean you try to make yourself, you're always going to be a little dirty. There's always a little dust bunny in the corner somewhere. So the purity culture just doesn't work. And so, you kind of mentioned, is it okay to say God or whatever? And then so to that play, Jesus always found himself amongst the messy people. Those are his people. Those are his people. Because as soon as listeners take this in for half a second, just imagine if we could stop finally fighting to be pure, because it's not possible. It isn't possible. So when you finally just tap into the fact that, yeah, I get to be fully human, like there's specks of dust on me all over, and I actually feel most comfortable when I'm inside the space of accepting the fact that I get to be fully human. Like I am both a good person and a not good person sometimes. Like, why is it either or? Like, this is what we are, right? And so when I think about that, I am both a good person and not so good person. Sometimes and I don't know if I'm speaking, out of line here, so please just help me along. Sometimes I think to break the cycle of victimization, and I am no expert here, so I'm just gonna lay that forward. It's to finally realize that I myself have flaws and I do silly things, and um sometimes and so I'm speaking from personal experience within this concept. Sometimes when I begin to think that way, it helps me to begin to repurpose my suffering, repurpose my pain, let the gift of the pain come forward. So I'm listening to your story, and I'm by no means trying to put my words into your experience, because your experience is what it is. And what we're all hearing is how you have allowed your story to support, and you're so transparent and so courageous, like these different entities working at a law firm, working at all these different, it's a plethora and differing structures. So it's clear that you have to somehow morph your energies around what they're doing. And so you shapeshift and saying, how can I best be used? It's evidence. The evidence reveals that you do this. And so, like, when I think about a cowboy gets on a couple, a cowboy goes, I like that Bronco, but a cowboy is willing to ride any, just put me on the wildest horse. I'm a cowboy. I'll do whatever it takes. you know? So, so on that note, when I think about redeeming your suffering or bringing purpose to your pain, um, what would you say has been what was the moment? Perhaps we'll say it that way. What was the moment that you said, I've got to do something with this. I can't eliminate it. I've got to do something with it. And you decided, I got to act here, and I got to, instead of trying to push it away, I got to put it almost front and center, like the very thing we don't want to do. Like I escaped the life. So mostly we'd want to be like, push it out of the way. You're like, actually, it's here every morning. I can't stop the voices, the smells. It's here. And instead of running from it, you said, okay, and you stared straight at it. Very courageous thing to do, the thorn in the side, but the thing is serving you and it's actually fueling you. Like I can see this, right? It's actually come to it's taken on a new life in you. It's transcended because you included it. Sorry, I'm going to stop talking. Go ahead.
Yeah, stop talking. It's good. Yeah. It's just funny because I had never seen it. I don't know if I don't think I was ever allowed to let it go to the side or go
Mm,
to the back. And so, because there's so many different things and dynamics, especially with family and people that know you, and it's quick for people to bring things up from what you used to do or what you're recovering from, and you're this person, and it's like that is a part of my journey, that is a part of my story. It is not who I am, and so it took me a little time to actually understand that. And even after getting out of the life, I still went into a certain type of exploitation, but it was legal, but it was still exploitation because I didn't have any skills. And so it followed for a while, and it was like, you know what, it is what it is. I got to make this money. I got to pay bills. I got to do whatever.
mm,
Um, but I think one of those turning points was when my grandmother did tell me, like, you would be great as a nurse. You're patient.
mm,
You're so kind. You're not judgmental.
mm,
And all these things. And that was one of the turning points where it was like, well, I can do something. I
mm,
can do something different. And I think another part of it too was I had a daughter that I was going to have this conversation with
mm,
at some point.
mm, mm,
And I was like, how am I going to tackle this? Because, the old school way
mm,
is to, you don't talk about it, but
mhm,
others can, but you
mhm,
don't talk about it.
mhm,
And I was like, well, I'm not going to let people kind of write this narrative to my daughter about me.
mm,
Right. So I'm going to do it.
mhm,
And I think the first time, I want to say it was like 10 or 11.
mhm,
I told her, I was like, yeah, mommy used to be a stripper. That
mm,
was how, I
mhm.
started it. And I remember she stepped back and she looked at me and she kind of quirked her little cute face up. And she was like, you know what? You're so much better than that, you know?
Mm.
And I was like, no, she didn't. Did my kid just read me? She's like,
Here
mommy,
you're trying to be vulnerable, and she says you're better than that. You're like, wait a minute, what's
yeah.
going on here?
And she was like, mommy, because I just see you this way. And I was like, this kid looking through her eyes
Mm,
from her words, this kid was like, my mom is amazing. And I know what people say about those types of people. And I don't see that with my mom,
mhm,
And so I just started having like these age appropriate conversations with her.
mm,
Now, granted, I think I probably traumatized my kid a little bit,
mhm.
but
And as parents, we all kind of do, because at least in my home as well, my parents didn't really explain a lot of things. So I was promised it'll be different for me when I'm a parent. And I
yeah.
can be an oversharer. And sometimes my kid just literally says, okay, dad, I don't want to hear this. Stop. He goes, I'm like, oh. And then sometimes I keep wanting to share because I'm thinking, I just got to push through because he's going to receive such a gift. And then I do. And he goes, oh my goodness, I can't. I dreamt about it last night. I'm like, what?
You're like, no, let's process. Like,
Right? It's like,
but you're
why inflict yeah, why inflict art? And sometimes I have to remind myself, like, and so back to your, and just sorry for cutting you off just a minute ago, but it's a little bit like you're saying these traumas are like way buried down deep. And sometimes I have to remind myself, and listeners, you probably can tap into this. Like, if we're not careful as a parent, we tend to project our traumas onto the other, thinking that might be their experience because we're so comfortable with our trauma. They're like, actually, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I'll never forget my boy when he was, what was he? Was he 13, 14? He just come into testosterone. And then one of his cousins She's just a little older than him. And so I was having a little talk with him just about life in general. And, of course, objectification, you want to get to that real quick before they start discovering things online and different things. So I just said in our family, this is kind of how we do it. And we don't objectify. And then I used, what did I say? I don't think I used the T word, but I think I just said breasts, like your first cousin is going to develop. And so I was just saying different things and I just said this. And he's we were going for a drive, I'll never forget. And he looked at me, actually cut me off, and he's a very generous, kind human being. He cut me off and he says, Dad, don't ever use that word again. And I'm like, oh, he gets it. He gets it. He goes, even the word you're using, and again, I didn't use the T word, but I think it was breasts. And he says, and so he was very okay with talking about body parts,
Yeah.
but about objectification, even that was too much for him. I'm like, whoa, that's super cool. But anyway, sorry, go ahead. You were saying.
No, but that's really good. Like you were teaching him early on, and that's beautiful too because so you take you and your wife, and you guys can have these amazing conversations with your kids, and no one will bat an eye.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
But for a
mm-hmm,
survivor, if I start
mm-hmm,
talking about,
mm-hmm,
sexual health and reproduction, all like just
mm-hmm,
it's like, how dare you? You shouldn't talk about that, especially where you came from. And like,
mm-hmm.
it's
Wow,
like there's
wow,
been a lot of uphill battles
wow,
with
wow.
having those conversations. But I was like, this is my child,
Yeah,
and I'm going to talk to her. And
wow,
I was one of those that
wow.
we didn't use the cute names. We used the correct names for the body parts because if someone touches you
Yeah.
in these areas, you say no, you back up, and you come tell me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And you earlier you said something about fight, flight, or freeze.
mm-hmm,
I am a full-on fighter,
mm-hmm,
every sense of the word.
mm-hmm,
Physical, emotional, like I
mm-hmm,
fight. I'm older now. I try not to fight.
mm-hmm,
Um, but like I've literally fought for my kid in every sense of the word.
mm-hmm.
And
Good
it's
job.
thank you.
Yeah, good job. Yeah.
But no one protected me.
Mm,
So, and I needed to be able to protect her. And it's the same with my job too. And that's another one of my tie-ins for my job, is if these kids don't have someone to protect them, I'll be one of those people to protect them. I'll be one of those people to connect them to who they need to be connected to. I'll
mm,
be one of those people where they can just have the conversation and there is no judgment. And I always tell the kids, I come from the same place you come from. You tell me what you feel comfortable telling me,
mm,
and don't if you don't feel comfortable, but I'm here. And this won't
mhm,
go any further than us or this room or whatever it is. And I was able to build a number of relationships with hundreds, maybe into the
mm,
thousands with kids in group settings, in school settings, in any type of setting, one-on-one settings. I've literally directly faced so many kids in my career. I'd like to hope that I was able to to
mm,
give them a
mhm,
little bit of light or
mhm,
to
mhm,
move some of the debris so then they could see
mm.
other good people that are there to help and serve them. So I think I kind of went off,
That's
but
beautiful. I love that. I no, that's it's super fantastic. Would you say, I don't know if you've ever thought of this, and again, if this is not in line with what you want to respond to, just feel free, of course, right? But would you say that subconsciously you look for organizations or I wouldn't want to say support structures, but would you say you look for entities that you can align with that will um, be a voice for you when you want to take it all the way and they kind of help it so it doesn't go too far. And the reason I say this, like I bought my wife, I think it's is it Steve Larkin or there's a book about how to protect yourself from attackers, right? And you go all in fit quick, right? Yeah, what's his name? Sorry.
I don't know his name, but I know what you're talking about.
Okay, exactly, right. And so but you got to go, you got to basically be willing to go at it quicker than the other person is willing to go at it. Like you
Yeah.
just go intense and boom, you create this instant this is not a good idea concept, right? And so would you say that to some degree, like saving innocence, um you love them perhaps, or you love working there because you get to be a cowboy, but just before you go too far, they kind of go, well, let's contemplate this. And I guess the reason I ask this is sometimes when we get really involved, we're like, I'm willing to give my life for this. Like, seriously, I will die. Like, I'm willing to do this. I don't care.
Yeah.
Right?
Whatever
Would you?
happens, happens.
Right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm still like, I know certain areas I shouldn't go into or whatever the case is. Like, I'm just not going to walk in
Mm-hmm.
with bells and whistles, like, all right, come get me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But the majority of the time, yeah, I just kind of go with whatever is needed. So if I see that there's a really big need and I'm right there, I'm going to fill it. If a kid calls me and says, I'm ready, I'm scared, which myself and one of my colleagues from SI, we did
Mm-hmm.
actually do a very dangerous retrieval. And I mean, we planned it out. I was talking to the girl every step of the way, and it was extremely dangerous. And we were able to get her out unharmed and totally fine. And, you know, it's just, I know that the people at Saving Innocence care about me. They see
Mm-hmm.
the value in me, not just as an employee, but as an
Mm-hmm.
actual human being. And I would say Saving Innocence literally is the best place that I've worked. And with the number of people that I've built a relationship with, because even if they don't understand me, they work on trying to understand me. And I work
Mm-hmm.
on trying to understand them. So it's constant like
Mm-hmm.
learning and growing. And when I worked under LA County Probation, that was kind of like my first jump in where I was doing retrievals almost every day.
Wow.
So
Wow.
Saving Innocence, they do serve as like this barrier before I do go too far in
Too far
or
in.
too deep in the down the rabbit hole.
Gosh,
And
I can only imagine all the energy that you feel from within you. So you exit that whole structure, and you gotta let the energy go somewhere. Right. And so you work for Ellie, and you work for this group of people, and you get to do this every day. And it's almost like you get to process your anger in such a way that supports those very people. You would have just wished these people would have come for you. And now you get to be that voice, and it's energizing problem. You get to take it out, and you just get to let it almost process that. Instead of having to do the think, you just get to work it, and your body gets to move. Right. It's just, holy smokes, incredible, incredible work. I want to share a bit of a story, and if you don't mind, help us out a little bit here, because when I share this story sometimes with my clients, they're like, "That's an incredible story, but there's another level that's now available because you're here." And so I had a friend years ago, who, like you, she went to be a nurse, and she's going to school to be a nurse, and her husband was going to school to be a plumber, and they had no children at the time, as far as if I remember the story correctly. And so her husband was out in the evening. He was doing evening or night school, and she was at home studying. And then the evening, she retreats to the bedroom upstairs. And so she's in the bedroom, and all of a sudden she hears the door open, and she thinks, "Well, he's home early. This is strange." Of course, we know something's happening, and before she knows it, there's somebody standing in her doorway, and it's the silhouette of another human, and it's not her husband; it's someone else. And before she can do too much, and she's just a small little thing, she's got a lot of fight in her too, but she's a small human being, right? And for example, my wife is 4'10 3/4. My friend, or our friend, is about the same size as my wife, just a petite little soul. And of course, no match for the human that's there, or the man that's there. And so she sees clearly the intention of this person. This person is here to take. This person is here to put hands on and do more than hands on. And so clothes get ripped off. And so she's laying there, and the act is about to happen. And she realizes fighting isn't working anymore. And she looks at him and she says, "What are you doing?" Like, she's just curious, like, "What are you doing?" And he jolts back and sits up and just kind of shakes his head, jumps off the bed, and runs away. So when I share that story with my clients think, well, that's a very powerful story. Like, wow, that's what we can do. And that's how we don't get caught in a scenario where it gets worse. The only thing is, I would imagine with exploitation, that that way of being doesn't work, right? Because they've already agreed to follow through. I don't know what it is, but if you could speak to, maybe firstly, if this is appropriate for you, like, one of the things I know my wife often talks about is when someone is being in an unhelpful way, untoward way, whatever that is, the thing to focus on is to let them see inside of themselves. Like, instead of you responding to a question they give from within yourself, you put the focus back on them, that they contemplate and become aware inside of themselves.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that's step one, but if you could, are you willing to go through, and I think to some degree, like there are people who are listening to this that may actually be trafficked at the moment. And so speak to those people, but also speak to the people maybe that are like just like our friend, right? Like this, how does this actually work and how to go through? Because I would imagine, and I don't know what your escape all look like, and you don't have to share details if you don't like, but I would imagine there's something that we can always do. Let's be honest, though, sometimes it's just the circumstances too deep. We can't do much, and it's just we're in it, like the vortex. Like ultimately, you're right in the suction, and you can't really like. What are you gonna do? Like you got like how many pimps all they know you got like a branded little thing on your neck, for example, which is now covered with a different tattoo.
No,
You know,
that's still the brand. There's
oh,
two of
that's
them.
still the. Oh wow. Okay,
Two of
so
them.
so
Yeah.
so you kept it. Holy smokes!
Hmm.
Wow. And
Hmm.
so you kept it for what reason, by the way? Like you could tattoo over top of it, but you kept it for what reason?
For the kids, because the plan was to
Oh,
get it removed. Then it was to get it covered. I am actually going to get it covered up very soon.
mm-hmm,
Because I'm older and I'm
mm-hmm.
like, y'all know my face. Y'all know who I am.
Uh-huh.
But I kept it for them.
Mm,
And I mean, the things that I've had to go through for so many years of having this, of my old exploiters contacting me and you still belong to me. And while I'm doing this work, and I'm like, yeah, really?
mm.
I wish you would, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
Um,
Come and
but
try.
come
Yeah.
and try because there are a number of people that clearly, definitely, wholeheartedly care about me and are willing to walk through the fire to make sure I'm okay.
Well,
Which,
that's clear. Like I know I talked to Ellen. I said, Ellen, I love to have Jessica on the show. And Ellen says, okay, let's first do a talk, you and I, he says, and then we'll see. I'm like, this is fantastic. And I'm like, you're a good human.
oh yeah, no, Alan, I trust him with my complete life.
Mm,
And if something were to ever happen to me, I know that my daughter is okay. I know that
mm,
him and his beautiful wife and their family would surround, like wrap around my child. My child is a part of their family.
it's beautiful.
And I have a few other amazing men that, because I don't trust men either.
Mm, mm-hmm,
Um, just people, but men especially. And they're like, is a handful of men that I
mm,
wholeheartedly trust.
mm,
And I know that they will move mountains for me.
mm.
And Alan is one of those main ones that will move mountains for me. Um, and kind of even going back into with your friend
Mm-hmm.
that
Please,
I'm
yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
that was assaulted because that was still assault. Um, her having that moment and speaking to him, that can be a number of things. But for me, how I perceive it to be is there was a level of acceptance on her part because
Mm,
it's kind of like this is almost inevitable. But hey, I'm going to get out what I need to say. And I can tell with her saying that, it was almost like she got calm. And
mm-hmm.
the thing is with
Totally.
attackers, they don't like when you get calm and you shut out. And what I've noticed with attackers, and I've had a number of them, they want you to scream, they want you to cry, they want you to beg, they want you to plead. And you being calm and asking a question is not going to stop everyone because, like you said, they came in and their minds are set.
Mm,
And some are just probably a little scared, or he might be kind of new to it. And, he's just acting, which is a whole
mm,
other
mm,
conversation.
mm-hmm,
The sexual crimes and stuff like that against women and children, that's like a whole other conversation.
mm-hmm.
Um, but it was the calmness, it was the stillness, and her like, why? What's your point?
So it's
You
almost like they're looking for evidence that they're being bad,
Mm-hmm. Wait,
right?
say that one more time.
So so like you say, they're looking for the scream. It's
They're looking
almost
for they're
yeah,
looking for
they're looking for fear. So it's almost like the fear validates and it becomes the evidence that they're like bad people and they get significance on being bad. Like
yeah,
I'm a bad person. Like I'm a really bad. You know what I mean? Like they get high off of that.
it's power. And
Power. Yeah.
having power over another human, like what you're
Yeah.
saying, it's that getting high and like I'm this, I'm a bad mofo, like
Yeah. Yeah.
power, whatever it is. And I mean, you just have some that are out there that are sexual deviants, but even their sexual deviancy still ties into the power
Mm,
dynamic.
mm,
And so, I mean, I've been in situations where I was full on sexually assaulted, right? And I was calm. There were times where I wasn't calm. And then there are times where they followed through with it, and there were times that they didn't follow through with it because they were like, this chick. There was
Wow. Wow.
actually there was a
Wow.
it was a few years ago, and I went to this food place, and it's kind of like the street itself is known for activity, but there are certain parts that are known for it and certain parts that are not. I was
Mm-hmm.
in a place where it was not known for, human trafficking. And there was this like cool diner. I was like, oh, I want some fried chicken. I want some biscuits and gravy. Like I wanted this whole thing. I was feeling it. I'm like, I'm about to put these carbs on because me too. I'm a little woman. I'm 5'1.5".
No,
So
okay.
yeah, my
No,
mom's 4'11". I'm 5'1.5". Like,
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, and so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go get this and blah blah blah. And so the people, for whatever reason, they were not like coming out to get my order. So I was like, F it. I'm just gonna go to my car
Mm-hmm.
and find somewhere else to eat.
Mm-hmm.
But me, because I'm super vigilant, most of the time I can see my surroundings. And there was a guy walking like way down the street. And I went in and no one, came up with the order, but the man was like way closer too fast. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, huh. And I was like, okay, maybe you're tripping, Jessica. Maybe you're tripping. I have my daughter's dog in the car with me. He's like waiting. It's, early evening. So it's starting to get dark. It's kind of cool. And I walk to my car and I feel something behind me, and I happened to look in my window. I got closer and I had unlocked my car and I looked in the window. The guy that was way down the way was directly behind me.
Wow. Wow.
And so I quickly locked my car door, and the dog didn't tell me nothing. So me and the dog had a conversation. I was like, bark next time.
Yeah,
Let
yeah.
me know, you know? And so, but I locked the car door and I pushed my keys between
Yep.
my knuckles, and I start bouncing, and I'm like, what's up? Because I'm like, you may be able to overpower me as a man.
Yeah.
You're not going to win this fight. I'm going to get DNA. I'm going to get all kinds of stuff. You are going to be
Yeah.
hurt
Yeah. Yeah.
messing with me.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because the guy kind of jumped and looked, and then he backed up and started walking the other way, but he laughed. And he
He
just,
laughed. He laughed.
yeah, he laughed. He was like, and was like, it was very like, like UBITCH. A
Wow.
lot of attackers, it's the element of surprise. So going back to your friend, it was the element of surprise. She wasn't expecting anyone to walk into her home. Most people don't expect strangers to
Right.
walk into their home. This guy is like, oh, she's not paying attention. Most women don't pay attention. I've heard that, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
the element of surprise. A lot of times they don't want to face you head on because it might be a fight to the death. It might be a struggle. They might get caught. Something will happen. So your friend saying, like, what are you do? What are you doing? Why
Mm-hmm.
are you doing? Like, what's wrong?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It hit them probably in that moment. As to for some others, it wouldn't hit them one way or another. You
I
know.
see exactly what you're saying. So there isn't a consistent formula that will work across the board. Like what I'm hearing you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm willing to be wrong anywhere, but what I'm hearing you kind of say is to a large degree, and again, we're not trying to make this super simple because if we're solving to make it simple because everybody can get out, if we know these metrics, it doesn't work like this. It just doesn't, it isn't that simple, right? But again, so what I'm hearing you say it's these individuals, they crave a certain experience and they're certain it's going to go a certain way, but then when you prove through your actions it's not working that way, and so I guess everybody has their own weird flavor for how it is, but one of the things that I can't help but wonder about, because you see us on, when I say the outside, we haven't experienced your life. How is it that I'll just slow it down for a second because my brain's going a million different directions. We on the outside, and I know you have this experience now too, to a large degree, like you're not being traumatized like that. I mean, we all have trauma to some degree in life anyway, but not to that degree, right? How is it that you as an adult could manage to see that life is, you have to keep going and that you continue your life when you know that new trauma is going to come, all of which you have to push down into your being all over again, and you do this day in, day out, moment by moment? How is that I have to be careful not to say how is it possible, but how does a human find reason to live? I mean, you could have likely ended your life, but you didn't.
No, that it's really good because ending my life is not an option. I have to think about my child. I have to think about the kids in my family that look to me, and certain things that were instilled in me by my grandmother, my grandfather. I'm a fighter,
Hmm.
and I get
That's
tired of fighting.
beautiful. That's beautiful.
So, but I continue to fight. It's so funny, and I won't go too deep into it, but I was assaulted over the weekend. Um,
Oh.
you know what I mean? And it was just like where I was like, I'm ready. I'm too old. What is going on?
Uh-huh.
And I mean, where I was grabbed, I was hit, I was assaulted, not sexually, thank God. Um, but just assaulted, and the person attempted to rob me.
Mm.
And it was just like in the moments I can speak of to now, because I did my therapy, was like, what have I done? I went through, what have I done so bad? Am I a bad person? What's going on?
Mm.
Maybe this life is just not working out for me. Maybe I need to figure out something. Maybe I need to run. I talked to my supervisor. I love her to
Mm.
death. She's a friend. She was a friend before she became my supervisor. And just being transparent with her and her walking those steps with me.
Mm.
Um, and I know, because I'm still working in this direction of getting my life right, and the enemy's going to throw anything and everything at me to take me out,
Mm.
to put me
Mhm.
out of the game. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? But the thing is, it's still not an option. I still have to be strong. I can't just bow down and lay down. And my daughter calls me one day, because my daughter's deployed right now. She actually called me before the
Good stuff.
show.
Yeah.
Um, she's just like, "How are you? I feel you. What's going on? What's up, mom?" Like,
Mhm.
and she calls me every time she ports. Um, and just like having the conversation with her, and just where she literally tells me, like, I'm just happy. She was like, "Mom, I know you're tough." She was like,
Mhm.
you maybe it's time for you to rethink something and come live with me, or she's
Mm.
thinking of different things. But my daughter always tells me that she knows I'm tough and that she's proud of me, because I
Mm.
never give up. And that gives her
Mhm.
the the fire to keep
Mhm.
going. So if
Mhm.
I gave up now, even though my kid is 20, almost 22 years old, if I gave up now, like,
Mhm.
what is that saying to my kid? What is that saying to the kids in my family? The kids in my family, my daughter's generation, one's in college to be a veterinarian, another one's in college, and she's dyslexic, and she
Mhm.
made it to college, and she's working and she's doing. Another one is in dental school, and she graduated high school early.
Mhm.
Another one is a nurse, and she went through a
Mhm.
crazy tumultuous situation before getting to this point. And all of them are successful, and every single one of them call me, and they call me especially too. They call me with the good, but they call me when times are hard, and they're like, I don't want to do this no more. And they look for the fight. So
Mhm.
it's not my life for me to say I need to lay down and I need to die and I need to whatever. It's
Mhm.
not my life to do that. My life belongs to these kids. So I don't have the option of, and believe me, sometimes I want to lay down and die. Like, I'm
Mhm.
just tired. Like, Jesus, take me now. Like, and, but the thing is, I have to continue to push and move forward. And my therapist works it out with me. My friends work it. My close friends work it out with me. My daughter checks in with me. My daughter talks to me about, and my daughter was actually assaulted in the military. And working that out with her, it would have been completely understandable if she laid down.
Mhm.
She didn't. She
Mhm.
fought through it, and she's
Mhm.
doing great. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And so it's just kind of like, when you see that it's not an option, when you put
Mhm.
it in your mind and you accept that quitting, laying down, whatever it is, when
Mhm.
you accept that it's not an option, you're going to continue to fight tooth and nail for that peace, whatever it may be. So I fight tooth and nail. And I'm not saying those that have actually laid down, because I have to be careful, because, there's a lot of emotional and
Mhm.
all kinds of things that play a part in those that do take their lives. Or,
Mhm.
and I'm not talking about those instances. I'm
Mhm.
talking about where somehow, some way, God managed to still keep me kind of where I am.
Mhm.
And if I don't love myself enough, I
Mhm.
love these kids enough.
Mhm.
And so sometimes it's really hard for people to grasp onto something or someone or a purpose, right? To where they still need to be here or want to be here. And I do believe the day that I'm supposed to die is when God says, okay, you
Hmm.
fulfilled what I needed you to fulfill, so you can come on home now.
Gosh, sometimes I surprise myself at how naive I am. And when I say this, it's like I wasn't even asking the question from the preface of what you thought of doing with your life now. I was thinking back in the other world of how could you continue going. But I love the way you answered it because yeah. This is all, and for me, when I think about how naive, and I don't say this like trying to like degrade myself. I'm just like, see, this is if you haven't had experience, you ask questions, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh no, what am I saying? But here's the point. Like while you're talking, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, but wasn't life when you're living or when you're in the life, like, and in the life is when you're being trafficked, like that's what it's called, the life or whatever, right? So I'm thinking during times like that where you're traumatized over multiple times a day, 10, 15 times a day for like 3 years on never ending, how do you keep yourself alive during a moment like that? And then your answer, it's kind of like going, at least what I'm observing, and I'm willing to be wrong anywhere, but you take it into the current moment and you're like, well, I'm focused on, do I have the capacity for what's going on here? And I think that's in some ways so beautiful because you're saying, listen, the only place I can be is here where I am. And back then, I already proved to myself I had the capacity, whatever that looked like. Like you went through horrific things and it's like the deceiver, whatever that even is, but it's like you looked at fear in the eye. Instead of being afraid of the fear, you began to dance with the fear, saying, you mofo, you think I don't have the capacity? Watch this. I got this. It's going to be kind of messy, but I'm going to go through with it. And you did. And
Yeah.
now here you are again. And it's like, from an outside viewpoint, I'm thinking, well, your little robbery, it's not just a little robbery, but yesterday's thing was nothing in comparison to back then. But it's like, and I have no idea if this is what's going on, but it's like you're just present here saying, all you're doing is saying, do I have the capacity? And you're answering yes. Yes. You proved it to yourself over and over again, and you keep doing the same stuff. You know what I mean? And that's a beautiful thing. In some regard, when I hear that, it's like, holy smokes, has this woman healed? And I don't want to like be saying something that isn't true, but it's like, how can you be so present here that the past isn't controlling your life and it's so horrific? Like it's just mind blowing to me. My heart just doesn't know what it needs to do right now. I have no idea.
No, no. And it's not naive. And I think I kind of my brain went there,
That's
but
good. I love it.
it's still the same concept. But a big part of it, because a lot of places don't let you talk about it, but it's God.
Mm,
It's that faith. And even when I felt as though like God did not see me, he saw me because literally I should have died literally
mm,
at least 3 or 4 times when I was out in those streets. I was preparing for my death. And I remembered, I would just, please, God, please get me through this. I just want to see my daughter. I just want to see my daughter.
mm,
I always thought about like if I died, my daughter would never truly know me. She
mm,
doesn't have her father, and now she wouldn't have her mother. So she would literally be
mm,
a motherless child,
mm,
and everything I did was to get back to her. Like I got pregnant early and I wasn't looking to do it, but my daughter, that child, I know she's an adult now, but that child, God put her here
mm,
to
mhm,
save me,
mhm,
literally to save me. Like I
mm,
love that kid so much.
mhm, mhm,
And if it wasn't for her, because I did not love myself and I still struggle in loving myself today, but I know that all my love is for that girl. That
mm,
girl, like
mm,
whatever it is, she's like, Mommy, I need you to do it. I'm dropping everything and I'm going, and everybody's like, just because she's grown. And I'm like, but she's my baby. Because
mm,
I don't know if people can fully understand, but she literally, physically, in every sense of the word, that kid saved me
mhm,
because I didn't love myself. I didn't care if I died tomorrow. Like the type of activity I was into before she was brought about and after, even though they were still both very dangerous, the way I maneuvered in situations after having her was totally different. And I wanted to be better for her. And I got a chance, and it was a little selfish because I was like, no matter what, this person is going to love me unconditionally, and I'm going to love them unconditionally. You know what I mean? Like, who wouldn't
mm.
want who wouldn't want that gift directly from God? God saw me where he said, "You are worthy." And I took that like I am worthy, and I was worthy enough to
Mhm.
be her mother. So that's what got me through. That's what gets me through today. I
Because
love kids. I'm not having no more. I love kids. I'm like a a semi mommy to a lot of kids. So, but my daughter, that's mine. I always say I made that, you know? And so,
isn't that just so incredible that when something happens in life and we recognize that we're the caretaker, the very thing that we wanted for all of our life, somebody to protect us, somebody that would allow us to have feel peace and feel joy when we couldn't protect ourselves.
mhm.
And you became the caretaker. It's like a switch, just what is that? It's like a divine spark and something that you keep doing. Like guys and listeners, again, if you're on iTunes, you got to like check this out on YouTube because just watch this interaction and you will see the fire in her eyes. She has the ability to go firm and soft, but she holds that space at the exact same time. I have a little picture here in my office, and there's a picture of a lion and a lamb. And the reason I have that picture is, and again, I'm an amateur in the Bible, but I'll say it like this. It's a great book, some great stories, some great writings, just I see it like this. It's a book full of stories that wraps love around unique situations as the stories get stranger, basically. And it just keeps going and it keeps going and going and going. And in the Bible, it talks about and so if there is a place, heaven, I think there is. If there's not, well, then I was surprised. So I'm fine. Whatever happens, happens. All that it says though, in this place called heaven, there is, and I by the way, I also think heaven's a place on earth because we can experience a heavenly existence or a hellish existence. So you can take it as for whatever it is. But it talks about in heaven, the lion is with a lamb. And if the human thinks about it here on earth, we think, well, no, like on earth, the lion eats the lamb, right? Like the lion doesn't play with a lamb. But in heaven, it's like they're playfully wrestling. So I remember back in the day, my listeners will know this about me, but back in the day, I remember thinking, and I was trying to figure out like, how is it? Like, do I be firm or do I be soft? And I went through a journey, and I was always overtly firm before I went through my journey. I checked out of life for 2.5 years, right? I was too firm. I succeeded like crazy, but I got what I wanted, just a taker, basically. And it's just what it was. Sorry to say, but I thought I was a giver, but it's kind of this, okay? And so I go through this journey, I check out of life, I come back in, I think, see, the problem is I'm being too much like a lion. I need to be more like a lamb because my wife is more like a lamb. She's soft. So I need to be more soft and nurturing. And so, of course, the problem always is if it's either or, that's not really a good way of living because it isn't really either or, it's both and. However, one day I remember I was thinking, okay, who is this Jesus person? So I go back to the Bible, and I go Ecclesiastes and it talks about, and I think, see, there you go. It says it's time for love or hate. And I go, see, it's this or that. And I go, I see, who is Jesus must have been incredible. Like the willpower he had to always discern properly. And I was like doing all this, thinking about all this and months, listening to songs and trying to get through it, whatever. And all of a sudden somebody says, I remember I said what I had read, like this or that. And they said, I challenge you to read that again because it doesn't say or, it says this and that. And I
Yes.
read it again and I'm like, oh my goodness. And it just hit me and going, wait a minute, whoa, this is incredible. It's the two shall become one. It's like a two-stranded rope can be easily snapped, but a three-stranded rope, not so easy. And so it's like, so we see it in your face, like you go, and it's just beautiful to observe. Like you're a beautiful human, very strong, but I just call it a fierce love. So you're both firm and soft. And so this is what I recognize in my life. I have those pictures there to remind me every day. It's not this or that, it's both and. And when it is, guess what? You can be truly a beneficial human and everything is there. And so to some degree, and I wouldn't say I'm thankful you went through your journey, but what I'm thankful for is who you are today. I'm thankful that you have allowed all of this not to make you bitter and not to make you angry at the world, but you're saying, actually, there are some things that I'm angry about, but that anger is driving me to take proper action. I think it's beautiful. I think it's just incredible. Good job. Like it's just really, really awesome. So good job. So there you go. So if you ever want to think about the lion and the lamb, I think that's in you at the same time. There you go.
Thank you. I'll take it. Yeah. We're fellow lions and lambs.
That's so good. That's so nice. It's so nice. You know what? You know, it's kind of interesting. You know, a little while ago, I had someone who said, "Oh, I wouldn't want to be a lion." I said, "Why not?" And he goes, "Well, and that's too domineering." And I think to myself, you know what's so interesting is if you're not domineering to some degree, there's nobody to protect your daughter. You got to be like, I stand up. No way, not happening. You know what I mean?
Like we're gonna rumble. It's going down. Like you have to be
Uh,
like with my daughter, the disciplinarian and fun or whatever
yeah.
it is, the love and love and discipline go hand in hand. That's a whole other thing too. You know,
True. True.
and
Yep.
it's taken a long time to figure out like that medium,
Mm.
because with some of my family, they're just like, Jessica, you are just crazy. You want things a certain way, this, that, and the other. I'm like, that's a part of who I am. If you
Right?
perceive it as being crazy, it is what it is, but like they also see how I love their children. They
Mm.
see how I love my child.
Well,
They
what's so cool about that is they say you're crazy, but then they say, and then they can see how much you love their children. And what's interesting is it's the crazy that allows you to love the way you do. It's the crazy love, like you know what I mean. It's beautiful. It's just you got to have it. If not, and so I often think it's so interesting because sometimes individuals are like for example, a little while ago, actually years ago, I wrote down. I went to this little event. We did a board breaking session, and on the front of the board, you're supposed to write down the thing you're breaking through. And I remember writing like, "This is the controlling thought that I have in my life. I'm nuts." So I wrote down, "I'm nuts. I want to break through that." And on the other side of the board, you're supposed to write down, "What are you breaking through to?" And I'm like, you know how it is when something's been paralyzing, you don't know what you're breaking through anymore. You're just like, this thing controls my life. I've been operating under this one question for all my life. I don't know. And of course, they push you and guide you. And finally, I turned the board over and I wrote down, so this is what I'm breaking through on. So after I broke the board, this is what I read.
Yeah.
I had written on the back of the board, I love life and I experience the goodness of life because I'm nuts.
Hello.
Right? Because of,
Hello.
right?
Yes. Like you gotta be a little nuts
You
to
gotta be,
really see what it is. If everything's like perfect and in its
oh,
place, and you can't really get the full life and understanding and
right?
meaning, and you can't, things have to be like this sometimes, you know what I mean, in order to get the stillness, right? And so like you gotta have that. And so I think over time, I think people are starting to accept a little bit of my crazy. The
Mm,
people that
mm,
really mess with me, like
mm,
really
mm,
are,
mm.
they accept my crazy. They're like, that's not crazy. You're just fun. You little, here or there certain days, but but that like that's the beautiful thing is you get to see the spontaneity of the situation or
Mm,
the moment. You get to see real full on raw emotion,
mm,
right?
mhm,
Not something that's controlled
mm,
and in this perfect little box. Like you get to
mm,
experience
mhm.
it, and I mean I like calm and stillness, but my spirit is not fully calm and still.
Well, I don't know about you, but I just call that state electrifying peace. Like, I don't know about you, but I don't get off on the idea that I get to float away on some ocean or sit in some cave and just like do nothing. To me, it's like peace is, to me, if something is alive, it's moving.
Yeah.
And what's moving is electric. So it's like electrifying peace. That's like so calming to me. It's incredible. So it's like still and moving. It's both the same, both and again, right? It's like, yeah, baby, let's go. That's so good. So share with us, where does that smile come from? Because I don't know, does it come from your grandparents? But where does it come from? Because every now and again we see it.
Like what do you mean?
Well, what I say is, what is that? It's like, it is very like there's a lot of life. There's lots of life, and it's just like, yeah, there's just lots of when I mean, I don't mean to be insensitive when I say what is that? It sounds really bizarre. What I mean to say is it's fantastic, firstly, so I love it. But what I mean to say is it's just so rich and it's so there and it's so present and it's just awesome. So where do you get that from?
um so I guess biologically my grandparents and my mom, I guess how it looks, but
I
uh,
love it.
my smile, it's my kid. Like,
Oh,
so
oh,
yeah, it's
oh.
her. Like, you know what I mean? It's just, like it's life, it's everything. And so I never had anybody ask me about my smile. Like I've had guys like, oh yeah, you got a nice smile, click click, you know,
Oh, that way. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, no. Yeah.
but no one to be like, oh, like,
Uh-huh.
you know, where do you get your smile
Uh-huh.
with life? And I don't hear that. That's not a usual. So that's
Mm-hmm.
why I was like, well, what do you mean? But
Well, maybe it's, you have a certain spark towards life. And I'm always fascinated because I guess often we're fascinated with the things that we're fascinated about ourselves. And I'm always fascinated with participating with life as it currently is. Like I once tried to eliminate the way life was, and that doesn't work. If we try to like break harmony with life, it doesn't work. So for me, it's kind of like I just want to learn how to like and be even more present to participate even more with what's directly in front of me. So it's kind of like there's such a spark that you have, and it's like you're just willing to kind of go where it goes. You know what I mean? And it's just the spark is, I think it's very youthful. Like you have like a very rich, youthful, vibe about you. And I live on the West Coast. I talk vibes, right? There you go.
vibes, it's vibes. Yeah. Thank
Oh,
you.
no problem. Jessica, one of the last questions I have or thoughts I have for you is what do you think this is all drawing you towards? And again, I'm not here to like take the surprise away from your life because I think we like to some degree live within surprise. We kind of like that. But where do you think this is all taking you, or where is this all kind of directing you towards? Where is this pulling you towards?
It's funny because life has not been anything that I planned or what I thought it would be. And so
Mm,
when I'm thinking like it's one thing, it turns out to be another.
mm,
And just like the amount of growing pains that
mm,
I constantly go through where I'm just like, oh, like what else? Um, I'm like the day that I'm not doing this anymore for whatever reason, not saying that I'm looking to not do it, but I just know that things just don't last forever, right?
mm,
There's a shelf life to it or something, and eventually I have to pass the torch on too, which,
mm-hmm,
that's what I've been working on with a lot of my survivor sisters and survivor allies is, it's preparing for the day that this is no longer my mission, that I'm supposed to be on. Um, I think, I thought about different things like the nursing. I think just the main thing is like my whole thing is to really help people
mm,
one way or another. Um, and, I'm hoping that my life continues to get richer, and
mm,
not like financial wise, but richer in just like, I get to be around for grandkids and I
mm,
get to experience life with my daughter and a potential, love whoever God has ordained for me to deal
mm,
with all this crazy.
mm, mhm,
You know,
mhm,
to just like really step into who I'm supposed to be. I just don't know. And I would love to know, but
mhm,
it's just like I don't know. And it's just
mm,
kind of like, okay, where is this life gonna take me next?
mm,
What's my next mission? Is this my main mission? But just having the family that I've created around me and the peace and actual joy to really wake up consistently one day with joy in my
mm,
heart
mm,
consistently because there are days
mm,
I don't feel joy. I just
mm,
get up and push through.
mhm,
So one day just to feel it every day
mm,
and to feel that gratitude in the morning when I wake up every
mm,
day and just like continue,
mm,
And
mhm.
who knows, I might go be an MMA fighter. I don't know, but
Oh, that I like to see. That would be incredible. Holy smokes. That would be somebody that's fueled by love. Look out. This would be dangerous. This would be intense. Okay, that would be now I'm really interested to see what's going to happen in your life because you just said something and I'm going, and I don't mind watching, UFC every now and again. But like the women's fight, yeah, I'm okay with it. There are some that are pretty good. But I'm like, oh, this fight I love to see because there's something in you that's right at the edge, and I love living on the edge. It's right there. It's so super nice. I love that. I love
yeah,
that. I
yeah.
love that. It's so
I just want to live life like,
right.
woo,
Yeah, yeah.
One thing I do want to do,
Uh-huh.
and not when I get older, not bucket list, but after I've done what I need to do and I can kind of take a breath or take a step away, so to speak, I want to get like what are they called? Like the mobile homes
Oh
or
yeah, like an RV. Yeah,
like an
yeah,
RV.
yeah.
And I want to just drive. Right?
Oh.
That's one of my ultimate goals is I just want to drive. I don't want to live in one place for at least a good 2 years, 3 years.
Uh,
I just want to drive and see all of God's land, like wherever it will take me. And I think that's the gypsy in me. But I just want to go. So that's what I want to do. And I think too with that, I want to like inspire like the people I work with and I see, just to want to continue to live life. Like life is hard. Life sometimes you feel like it's just not worth
mm,
doing, but I'm telling you, it's sweet because those moments you get to see and experience and feel and be in the moment, like that's what it's about, you know?
mm, mm,
And
mm,
I
mm,
do talk to like when I've talked to the kids, I'm like, this is one of those things like that has not changed for like 15 years,
mm,
right? It's like that's what I'm gonna do. And the kids are like, I never thought about doing that.
mm.
You should think about it, you know? And like I think for others, some might think, it's really simple. I don't want much, but
Mhm.
that's what I want, you
That's
know?
an incredible vision. I love that. It's super, super cool. I love that. And the only thing is, though, if you go on this RV ride, MMA fighters are going to have to really like be concerned because I know what you're focused on, your next art, your next piece of action. You never know because there is that cowboy in you, and you get to be all cowboy in the ring. You never know. Oh,
I
it's
want
so
to live.
no, I live. So, if you don't mind, and if it's okay, what can we, if you want to give us a suggestion, what can we all participate with? And Ellen said, for example, find a charitable organization close to where you are that focuses on, helping people, like kind of what you're talking about, exploited, but find a local cause that is helping specific people in this specific area. And that was his. And you have yours. What can we all do to participate and get a little closer to the discomfort? Which, by the way, I'm gonna just do this again. Everybody needs to buy this, and I'm going to buy a bunch of my guy friends this for Christmas. It's a great book. I know I'm going to say this is something that after you open your gifts and you're done laughing, then build your joy deeper by not just joy in the morning, as in like sunshine coming in the morning, but in the MOURNIG, because we get stronger when we build. And the peace that passeth all understanding is when we go to both and they expand, and that's beautiful. But anyway, on that, and I forgot what was I asking you? I forgot what I was asking you.
What folks can do to get closer
Yes,
to
please. Yes,
their part? For
yes.
sure. Thank you for plugging the book. So you can go to also, folks can go to menfightforme.net.
Mm,
I always say get educated. And so
mm,
this book definitely is going to offer so many different points of views because my survivor sisters are in this. U.S. ambassador, or well, he's not the U.S. I think he stepped down, but we have vice detectives that speak into it. We have an exploiter that spoke into. Like, there's so many different um, point of views in the book and perspectives, not just mine and Alan's perspective.
mm,
Um, and that's, I think, a really good start. So it's an easy read. It's hard, a little difficult emotionally because you have to grasp a lot,
mhm,
but it's not overly educational with $50 words or
mm,
$100 words. It's easy to read. It's not that big. And then if you go to menfightforme.net, we actually, my survivor sisters and their organizations and things that they do are actually on that website. And then
mm,
Alan and I have like some of our own like Zoom, we call them Zoomcasts, because we're not podcasters. We're gonna stay in our lane.
mm.
We're gonna give respect to the true. um, but we just talk about different topics and it relates to the book. My survivor sisters, their programs and everything are up there, and we have some of my survivor sisters that are from different states,
Mm,
so that may be helpful for some of your viewers that may be in those particular states
mm,
and how they can kind of get educated and get involved. Me, there's no shame in my game. I believe in saving innocence. I've been with them for, I'll be going on 7 years
mm,
of my career. I've done way over 10 years in this field, but I've been with them for 7 years and almost 7 years. And there are many ways you can give back: volunteering, donations as far as like tangible gifts or whatever the case is, hygiene, first responder protocol bags, where when the police call us and they've retrieved the child, and we go in with a backpack and we sit with that child and we start to build a rapport right then and there. We take those backpacks to remind them that they are loved, they are cherished, and they are kids, and they have every right to be in that kid, vibe,
Mm-hmm.
spiritual, whatever place,
Mm-hmm.
and they're safe and protected. If you want to donate money, donate the money, because the majority of that money goes directly to the kids. So when they're moving into their homes, if they need ID or whatever it may be, clothing, things for their own children,
Mm-hmm.
food, all kinds of resources. If they need to be, say for instance, they fell back into the life and they were taken to a different state, we pay for them to come back,
Mm-hmm.
and we're waiting for them
Mm-hmm.
at the airline, at the bus station, at the train station, however they, or we'll get in the car and go get them ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So all of the proceeds go to, I know for certain with Saving Innocence, and I did the development part too, so I know where it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes to these amazing children. But if you find a program near you and you want to get involved, just go to their site, read up on what they do, and see how you can give back. If you see something, say something. You don't have to put yourself in danger. But if you see a child or a human being and it doesn't look like a good situation, call law enforcement so they can step in. You might have just saved that person's life.
Mm-hmm.
Get involved with the schools and the after school programs, the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, whatever it may be, anything that has to do with kids, and you want to be a mentor and you want to be a person to say, I will always stand up for you, I
Mm-hmm.
will always be here for you. Do that. There's so many ways to give back. And I always say that it's not a boy girl thing, a man woman thing, a race thing, a rich poor thing. This
Mm-hmm.
is a human thing. This is humanity. And so, and you can reach so many kids before they fall victim to these predators that are constantly waiting and
Mm-hmm.
searching and just waiting for that moment to grab them. Like, you can go in and do something before it even begins. Teaching young boys to value, respect, and protect young ladies and women and not sexually objectify them. Teaching young ladies to love themselves, and to also respect and love and protect those young men and those young boys as well. Like, it's a community thing, it's a village thing. And so there's so much you can do. But I'll just say this: if you want to figure out more information, go to savinginnocence.org. We have a whole bunch of information on our websites, and we have links to other organizations and people as well. We have people that answer the phone all the time. So if you have questions, please feel free to call. You'll get the number off the site, and go to menfightforme.net to go ahead and get your copy. I am shameless in this. Okay. And the majority of the proceeds from the books, for however many books are purchased, it actually goes to survivors of human trafficking as well.
Mm-hmm.
So this is definitely all of this is selfless in itself. And Alan had put forth a lot in this book, and he's not looking for anything in return. He really just wants to get the information out there. So menfightforme.net, get your book. Go ahead, go to the website, do some research. You can also order our book on Amazon, and go to savinginnocence.org for any type of information on human trafficking. If you've got a question, we've got it. So
I love it. I love it. This has been absolutely incredible. I can't help but squeeze in one final thought, and I'd like to hear what you have to say. And that is,
yeah.
there are some people probably right now who are listening who are kind of down on their luck in life. And it might just be down on luck. It might not be like your scenario or what it was earlier. But let's say there are some people that are really traumatized. And whether it doesn't matter, any degree of trauma, any degree of like, I feel down on my luck, whatever it ends up being, what would you say about what you've discovered about the capacity, what a human can actually handle? Maybe not handle, but yeah, capacity of life. And if you could share something that they could just, because you know how it is, we're just hanging on to stuff. At that level, we're just hanging on. So that would that would allow them to hang on and perhaps let go of some things at the same time.
So with that, when things are just truly bad, and you're ready to let go. And I will say, because I'll recant a little bit, I did try to take my own life one time when I was in life, when it got too hard, but God didn't let me.
Mm.
And the biggest thing I can say is, you got to keep pushing forward, no matter if it's a speckle of something for you to hold on to. It's worth holding on to, because what might seem super small to someone else can be big to you. And if it's big enough to you, hold on to that and fight for you, because you're worth it. Even though you feel as though you are not. Believe me, I felt as though I was worth nothing. And the only person I could hold on to was my child.
Mm.
And for everyone, there may not be a child in the situation. They may struggle, they may not be able to have children, or it could be a dream that they had when they were a child, or it could be a loved one that they haven't seen in forever. It could be, I've seen a number of my sisters where they didn't have anything, and somehow they held on to God, or they
Mm.
held on to a higher power. So because everyone that I know they're not focused
Mm.
on God. They may have a different belief system, and they held on the best they could. You know what I mean? And it's you fight for whatever you possibly can, and you
Mm.
hold on, because your life, you're here for a purpose and a reason. You may not see it, you may not feel it, you may not know it, you may not understand it, but you're really here for a particular reason. So don't give up, because it's going to show itself to you. And anything worthwhile, and you're worthwhile, anything worthwhile is worth fighting for. I fight for myself every day. I fight for my child every day. You know what I mean? So you have to continue to fight. Every single one of us are fighters, even if you don't believe you are.
Mm.
Even if
Mhm.
you're like, well, I didn't say anything, or I didn't do anything, or I just let this person. Guess what? You fought and you made a decision what was best for you in that moment.
Mm.
So continue to hold on and fight. Don't be afraid to seek out help. Don't be afraid to speak to someone.
Mm.
And with everything bad that has gone on, fight your hardest to not close your heart. Because you have
Mm.
to, in
Mm.
order to let the good in, some of the bad has to get in too. But that bad builds character. And so I've got a heck of a lot of character. I am a little bit of a character, but you can't let go. You know what I mean? Like, you just
Mhm.
have to continue to fight no matter how hard it is. Find what it is that you hold dear to you, and hold on to that until you can see that you're worth it. That's what I can give.
You got a lot of fight in you, girl, and I don't think you're about done. I think you still coming. You still coming. This is good. It's
That's
been
kind
an
of
absolute pleasure, and I'm sorry you had to go through what you've gone through, but we as humanity are glad that you are here and you're showing up the way you are, and it's beautiful. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for, having me on your platform. And I just think you're amazing. And, you know, you have a follower in me. So I'll be listening to your podcast. But I feel really blessed that you wanted me to come on it and speak on your platform. So I'm very grateful and I feel very blessed. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. And again, where can people find you? Just real quick.
Where can they find me?
Yeah, or find you where your work find. Well, what am I saying? Find you exactly. Where can I find? You're saying you're not finding me. Exactly. That's what I normally say. But what I meant to say is, where can people find some of the work or tap into? Again, if you want to pass on a website, that'd be great.
Oh, yeah. So give us a shout out. Give me a shout out, Alan, anybody. We're at savinginnocence.org.
Mhm.
And you can find us at menfightforme.net.
Love it. Love
Boom.
it. Love it. Awesome. Thanks so much. It was a pleasure. Take care. With inflation rates rising, interest rates shooting up, gas prices skyrocketing, and the continued global unrest, it's easy to find what's wrong in the world. Tony Robbins says, what's wrong in the world is always available, but so is what's right. Instead of trying to hope and wish the world into a better place, it's time to make the most important decision any of us can ever make, and that is to invest in yourself. Now, you already know that I've always stood with you as you've navigated the uncertainties of life's reality. However, it's now high time that I step up and take decisive action to walk alongside your current life journey by making myself available to you in a radically new way during these challenging times. For a limited time, I'm inviting you to a 45-minute strategic business life consultation at no charge and no strings attached. This consultation is where you'll regain the reins of your life. It's where you'll gain clarity on exactly why you're stuck, moving you directly towards your optimal outcomes. I'm humbled to say, however, my clients' generous reflection of their time spent with me reveals the truth. The skills they've been able to master in a short period of time by engaging in our one-on-one strategic sessions have changed their lives in so many ways. This is the only invitation that I can fathom that will put my skin in the game of your life in such a way that will allow us to address your specific needs with precision and excellence. 45 minutes, just you and I, together on a call to get you headed in the direction you crave most. Here's what my clients report after our one-on-one sessions. A decrease in indecision, an increase in clarity, confidence, and courage, an increase in fully being able to capitalize on what's directly in front of them, an increase in impact at work, on their families, and on their communities, a decrease in pain and suffering, and a decrease in anxiety. So, if you want to move beyond old stories, get clear on where you're headed so that you can shake your world, then here's a rich opportunity for you today. Simply go to www.jameshepner.com and stay on the page for about 45 seconds or so